This is The Weekly Set, the official podcast of TVEnthusiast.com. With your host, Tyson Gifford and William Roerick. Episode 122, recorded August 23rd, 2017. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Weekly Set, the official podcast of TVEnthusiast.com. I am your host, the editor-in-chief of TV Enthusiast. My name is Tyson, and joining me today, as always, my partner in crime, William Roerick.
Hello.
So, today we are going to be talking about Twin Peaks, episode 15 of season 3, and we are also going to be talking about episode 6 of season 7 of Game of Thrones, titled Beyond the Wall. So, let's kick things off, first off, with Twin Peaks. So, this kind of episode started off with a cheery beginning, you know, I found myself smiling through the first couple scenes.
It was like a happy, you know, it was weird to start off on such a cheerful note because, you know,
it started off kind of like, what the hell's going on? Because Nadine's like marching down the street holding the golden shovel.
It resolves a lingering plot line from the first 2 seasons of Twin Peaks, which was basically the love triangle between Nadine, Ed, and Norma.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, basically the situation was Ed loved Norma, Norma was in love with Ed, but Nadine was in love with Ed, and Nadine was married to Ed, and then the weird crap happened where Nadine gained super strength and started dating a high schooler.
As one does.
But we try to forget that part. But basically, you know, that Twin Peaks ended all those years ago, and this love triangle was basically, it was never really resolved. And
we got it when Ed came back. Was it last week or a couple weeks ago?
It was I think it was 2 weeks ago. I want to say it's the episode before the last episode.
That sounds right to me. So when Ed came back, we kind of got this real sad note on him, the way the episode ended, basically just on him, showing that he's just in this kind of miserable kind of purgatory.
He's still pining for Norma. You can tell, you know, there's basically where he is at this point. He's still pining for her. Nadine, we've only seen Nadine in the context of she's listening to Dr. Jacoby's radio show and buying his golden shovels.
Yeah.
We haven't seen Nadine this season in the context of that whole situation. So it was unclear if they were even going to touch upon that or not. But this episode starts out unexpectedly with Nadine walking to Ed, and apparently from where Nadine is to where Ed is, apparently that's quite a long walk.
Several miles walking, holding a golden shovel.
Yeah, holding a golden shovel. She basically gives us feel that Dr. Jacoby's wisdom has enlightened her or whatever. You know, she bought the golden shovel and it just opened her eyes. She became woke. You know, and basically she says, you know, she basically tells Ed that he's free to chase Norma and that she won't be upset or mad and that she just doesn't care about that anymore. She cares about Ed's happiness.
So next scene we see Ed pulling his truck right up to the diner.
Yeah.
He gets out, he's super excited, he approaches Norma and he's like, I gotta talk to you. And she's like, oh, not now, I'm meeting with Walter.
Yeah, Walter.
Her business partner.
Who's her business partner. And apparent love interest, maybe.
Yeah. And so Ed kind of slinks away.
And it's just, she basically tells Walter that she wants Walter to buy her out and to take control of the diners because she wants to spend less time running the diner business and more time taking care of her family, and also she could use the money that she gets from a buyout to better take care of her family, right? And so it kind of ends, you know, so she kind of casts Walter aside, you know, and then the scene ends because Ed is so dejected when he sees Walter. He's just sitting at the diner. He's upset. He's clearly upset, you know, and you think, and you're thinking, oh, well, this, you know, of course, this is kind of a sad occurrence to happen. But then the unexpected happens and Norma casts Walter aside and she embraces Ed and they kiss and they're together. And it's the happy ending. The love triangle solved. Ed and Norma are officially together after all of these years.
And this means the rest of the episode is going to be light and cheerful from this point on, right?
It's all sunshine, rainbows, and bunny rabbits.
And power cords at night.
Bunny rabbits pooping rainbows. Right? No, it's not. Because because the very next scene is Evil Cooper, or Mr. C, as we like to refer to him. This goes back to episode 8, actually, because he goes to the convenience store where the woodsmen are that we've seen in episode 8, when we first seen in episode.
There's a really long shot of just like the windows flickering with light and so he actually goes there. There's a woodsman standing out front. They just kind of they kind of greet each other, but not non-verbally.
Right.
And then flicker out of existence as they go up the stairs to the, I guess, house above the convenience store or whatever.
And now this shot is interesting because it shows them going up the stairs to the convenience store superimposed over a shot of the woods to say that this is in another realm. Like he's actually in the woods, but in the realm beyond the woods is this convenience store with the woodsman. So Mr. C has actually left our realm to go meet Philip Jeffries.
He gets into a room and he talks to another woodsman there, says he's looking for Philip Jeffries. He like pulls like a lever.
Yeah.
And then he heads down like a hallway and then exits the building, and there's like it looks like a motel. And a woman comes up that's like the caretaker of the motel, but she's speaking in backward speak. So it must be something similar to like the Black Lodge.
Yeah, it's a similar thing to the Black Lodge, because only people in the Black Lodge or realms, again, it's showing he's not in our world anymore here.
Yeah.
Because he is in another realm similar to the Black Lodge.
Yeah. This is what they called like the Dutchman's, I guess, is what he was looking for. We're going to assume that's where he is. He gets led into a room. He goes in there. There's like this big like steam pot contraption and like smoke's coming out of it, and it's talking.
Yes.
And apparently it's Philip Jeffries.
Philip Jeffries, not David Bowie's voice. It's a different voice actor, voiceover. Of course, David Bowie tragically passed away before this series started filming, so they couldn't use him for the Jeffries character, Philip Jeffries character, which is unfortunate. But so basically, Philip Jeffries tells Mr. C about a woman named Judy, who is a woman, according to Philip Jeffries, that Mr. C has already encountered and already knows, even though he doesn't recognize the name. He doesn't know who the hell Philip Jeffries is talking about.
I saw one interesting theory about this. And it's only interesting because they did something similar before, where there was that moment, I think in the last episode, where James was talking to the one British guy, Freddie, that he works with, and Freddie said, I forgot exactly what he said, but he used a term like, I hit him right in the something or other, whatever, and that was like, it was like a weird like British wordplay thing, where like you say that and it's like a reference to like a historical figure or something. It's this weird thing they do. And so some people think that when they're saying Judy, it's in reference to Judy Garland, and then they're talking about Garland Briggs.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that makes sense.
And it's just kind of because it's the similar kind of weird wordplay that we've already seen in the show.
We've already seen, yeah, it makes sense for Twin Peaks.
Yeah, and so Jeffrey's like he says, "Let me show you," or something, and then you see like in the smoke, you see some like numbers start appearing, and Mr. C like quickly takes out a notepad and starts writing stuff down. We have no idea what those numbers mean. It didn't look like it was enough to be like a phone number or coordinates, so I don't know what it was, but apparently Mr. C figured out what it was. So Mr. C heads out of the gas station. He gets kind of like, it's almost like he's like ejected, like he just suddenly appears like where the phone booth is in front of the place.
Right.
And then you see someone's pointing a gun right at him.
Yeah.
And it's Richard Horn.
Richard Horn. This is a cool scene because Richard Horn, as you know, is somebody I had been dying to see get his ass kicked, and he does. Basically, he holds the gun to Mr. C, says he's figured out who he is, that he is an FBI agent, he's Dale Cooper. And then Mr. C, takes him down in a pretty brutal fashion, pretty much incapacitates him, and basically says, "Don't threaten me again. Now get in the truck."
We'll talk on the way.
We'll talk on the way. Just owns him completely. He's blindsided.
This is more leaning to the idea that Mr. C is his father.
Right. Richard says what everybody already figured out, that Audrey was his mother, and that's how he knows who Mr. C is.
So we get another scene kind of off in a forest. Steven, that kind of the junkie boyfriend of Becky, he is just completely off the rails, leaned up against a tree with the woman he was cheating on Becky with, and he's talking about like shooting himself in the head and just talking a whole bunch of like weird nonsense.
Right.
The woman kind of like that's with him is like kind of flipping out and trying to calm him down and say like, no, you know, be here with me. And somebody walks up on them who's like just walking their dog through the forest, sees them, and she freaks out and kind of like runs and hides behind another tree or something.
Yeah. And Steven like apparently shoots himself. He was threatening to do that already in the scene.
We just heard a gunshot. We don't really know what happened.
No, yeah, we don't.
But he'd been talking about it.
He didn't shoot the guy with the dog because we see the guy with the dog come around, so we know he didn't shoot him. So the other
Forrest talks to Carl.
So the other implication is that he shot himself.
Yeah.
And is it just me or does Steve kind of resemble Theon from Game of Thrones?
Yeah, he does.
To the point where I almost wondered if it was the same actor for a minute. I was like, no, it's not.
But yeah, he does kind of look like him. But so this guy walking his dog, he ends up talking to Carl Rod, and Carl Rod's kind of like, you know, you can kind of barely hear what they're saying, but something like, hey, it's a guy that lived over there, and he points to the trailer that had the hole in it in the window.
Yeah.
That we'd seen in the earlier episode that forgot what it was. Something got thrown through it. When Becky and him were having like a big fight. So we don't really know quite exactly what's going on there, but apparently it looks like Steven might have come to an end, but we don't know.
We don't know. It cut away. We didn't see what actually happened. Steven does not show up again in this episode, so his fate is unclear.
We had mentioned Richard earlier and about how he's Audrey's son.
Yes.
Well, we get another scene with Audrey, another kind of perplexing scene with Audrey and her husband Charlie.
What's interesting?
It's kind of picked up from where it left off before.
They're still trying to go to the Roadhouse. It's interesting because again, this is why
taking like 4 episodes to get to leave the fucking house.
This is why I think this is a dream or an Audrey's head, because it's like this kind of dreamlike thing because Audrey wants to go to the Roadhouse, but she can't go, or she can't, you know, like he's saying we gotta go, and she's just like yelling at him and getting on his case, and she's not actually moving or going, and
she's like self-sabotaging,
she's like self-sabotaging. It's very dreamlike in that way because, if you have a dream where you think to yourself, I gotta open this door or something, and you can't, for whatever reason, you can't open the door in your dream. It feels like that, The
implication is basically that Audrey's been in a coma since that explosion.
Right.
And she still is, and this kind of like the whole idea of going out to the Roadhouse, like if she went out to the Roadhouse, that might represent dying, or it might represent leaving and waking up.
It could be one of the two.
Yeah, so we don't quite know what that is. That seems to be what the case is, though.
Yeah, it seems to be what the case.
With the one exception being that a few weeks ago we had a scene where some people at the Roadhouse were talking about some of the same people that Audrey was talking about. But this is Twin Peaks, so.
But this is Twin Peaks. And Audrey in her coma dream could be talking about real people.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah. So, yeah, she's like, I gotta go. And Charlie's like, I got my coat on, let's go. And then she's like, I really can't believe you. And like just finding reasons. It's just really weird. It's kind of almost hard to watch.
It is hard to watch, yeah.
Because it's like insanity. It's like if you've ever
seen aren't you just going?
Completely insane,
Yeah, because it's like, well, why aren't you just going? And
yeah,
exactly. So for that reason, it can't be real. And it's interesting to see where they're going with these Audrey scenes. Where this is leading to in terms of her storyline. Because if she is still in the coma, does she wake up? Does she ever get to the Roadhouse? I don't know.
Well, the Roadhouse isn't all of that.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So at the Roadhouse, we have a scene where James is finally going to go talk to Renee, this girl he's been kind of like staring at, and she's been staring at him.
She's been staring at him, and there's the whole thing. But she's married to this guy, apparently. The guy who almost got like run over by somebody that we don't know. apparently that's not an issue anymore.
But he just like flips out on James. He's like, "Are you serious?"
Yeah, James just like says hi
face.
to her, and he's like ready to kill him.
Yeah,
he's like, jealousy much? Like, I mean, I guess Renee and James had a thing in the past. That's the only thing that makes sense here. So maybe he has a good reason to be jealous or to flip out. I don't know.
He's like, I don't care if my wife cheats on me, but not anybody that sings in that high of a register.
Yeah. Of course, James' friend Freddie is with him. The guy with the green glove and the super green strength.
Rubber glove of pile driving doom.
I called it I called it the Hulk hand, because like those rubber Hulk fists that you could buy when the Hulk movie came out, and it also has like Hulk super strength, so it's the Hulk hand. So,
you've seen the way it's cut with these like kind of almost bored punches that are just devastating.
Yeah, it doesn't even look like he's hitting him that hard. It just looks like it doesn't even look like he's exerting any effort into it. It looks like he's like love tapping them, and apparently like it basically almost kills Renee's husband.
Yeah, and it doesn't just do like a lot of physical damage. I mean, he's like foaming at the mouth, and
yeah, he's foaming at the mouth. He's like pretty messed up.
Wrong with it.
And James is like saying, call 911, and then James is like trying to awkwardly apologize for it. And it's like, it's probably better to just get the hell out of there at that point.
So next time we see them, they're being taken into jail by Hawk and Bobby.
Right.
They lock them up in the jail cells down there, where we also know that Deputy Chad is being held, as well as the weird blood drooling guy that repeats everything, and the woman with no eyes, Nido.
They find her.
Yeah, so they look at her, and basically James is just like, "What the hell?"
No, yeah, like natural reaction. She has like
no eyes. Yeah,
her face is all fucked up. So yeah.
So he's like, "What the hell is that?"
Sensitive.
Over in Vegas, we had a scene where Chantel Hutchins, the two friends are the Hutchins are the friends of Mr. C that are like killing people for him. Yeah. And we see her just kind of come in, like Duncan Todd is having a meeting in his thing, and she just blows half his head off.
Yeah, she just blows half his head. She kills his assistant. Apparently Duncan Todd's time has run out after his last failed attempt to kill Dougie for Mr. C. So, Mr. C is not going to tolerate his failures anymore, so he's dead.
So Chantel's talking on the phone to her husband, and she says, just one left.
Yeah, one left. So presumably they're going to go after Dougie directly.
Mm-hmm. There's another scene with the two of them, but it's just basically them eating French fries and talking about how they love each other.
Yeah, right.
Speaking of Dougie, though, we get a scene where Dougie is eating a cake.
Yes.
And he's kind of like OCD-ish, like moving stuff around on the table.
Right.
And he starts hearing that same kind of static thing that like a bunch of people in Twin Peaks have been hearing.
Right. He hears it come from the electrical socket.
Which he came out of an electrical socket.
Yeah, he came out of an electrical socket. So he's compelled to take a fork and jam it into the electrical socket, which apparently electrocutes him, blows out the power. Janie sees what he done and she freaks out.
She's screaming.
She's screaming. And unfortunately, that's the whole scene with Dougie this episode. We don't see what happens beyond that.
So what do you think that means? Because that's probably the most interesting thing that happened.
Well, a lot of people think that means this means Cooper is back.
Like maybe he downloaded the rest of his brain.
Yeah, maybe he downloaded the rest of his brain.
Or maybe if they've been hearing that sound in the Great Northern in the hotel, maybe he's gonna like teleport through it or something. And
he ends up in the rate, but his body is still there, right? So he didn't disappear. He didn't get sucked into the wall, or like his body didn't just like disappear as
that
it
we've
does.
seen.
It's still it's still there. So I don't think he moved anywhere. I think he's going to wake up and he's going to be Dale Cooper again. I can't think
only 15 episodes in.
Right? It's close to the end of the season. I can't see any other outcome for that scene. Like, what else would that scene be for?
The only other thing I can think of, like I said, is that sound in the Great Northern.
Right.
Well,
if you notice, that sound in the Great Northern is related to Dale Cooper. It's happening in the room he was in. It's also it's occurring in the room he was in. It's also started when his room key arrived at the Great Northern.
Mhm.
You know, when they sent his room key to the Great Northern, I think that's when that buzzing started.
Yeah,
so it's definitely...
We gotta be getting Cooper back soon. We
Right,
only got
exactly.
3 episodes left. It's gonna be the last scene of the last episode. But anyways, we saw in this episode, Hawk was talking to the log lady. She called him, telling him that she's dying and talking about kind of her fears about dying. And the two of them are kind of talking about what dying is. The idea of like, it's a change, not an end. And it's just kind of like a philosophical thing that seems like it's written in there specifically because the actress was dying at the time.
Right. It was very touching. Basically, yeah, this was probably the most moving scene in the episode. Just because the implication, it wasn't just like they were killing off the character of the log lady. This was the actual actress was passing away, you know, at this time. And this was kind of...
And it seemed very much to that extent, like they were actually, that seemed to be like the entire point of the scene.
Yeah, it was more, the scene seemed to be more of a tribute to the actress and the character than anything like plot related. It was like...
So after...
Interesting how David Lynch incorporated that into the show.
Yeah. After Hawk got off the phone with her, we had another scene later on where he had called all of his fellow officers into the meeting room they have and just told them that the log lady had died. And you just kind of see everybody... It's
a tribute to Margaret Lanterman. And, you know, the log lady was an iconic part of Twin Peaks. It was good that we were able to have her in this last season. You know, I think the end here, I think it was a fitting tribute to somebody who contributed greatly to the series, to the whole mythos of the series.
And the scene ends using her cabin on the outside and the light goes out.
Yeah, I think it was a worthy tribute. So definitely a somber, sad scene for reasons outside of just like the show itself.
Last scene of the episode, we see a girl played by Charlene Yee, named Ruby. She's sitting in a booth at the Roadhouse, apparently waiting for some friends. Some bikers show up and they're just kind of like standing by her booth looking at her. Yeah, she's like, I'm waiting for some friends.
They pick her up, they put her on the floor, and they sit in the booth. And she starts crawling along the floor and crying. And then at the end, she screams. I have no idea what the hell the scene is about.
Yeah,
I don't know who this
It's kind of weird.
It's you know, in a show full of bizarre stuff, bizarre scenes, this scene by itself is like the most bizarre. Again, there's no context.
Yeah.
You know, everything about it is bizarre. The girl is somebody we never met before. Bikers just picking up a random girl from her seat at a bar and putting her on the floor is like beyond the weirdest.
Just physically moving her.
Just physically moving her out of her seat just so they could sit there is like.
And then her just sitting on the floor for a while and then
weird
crawling.
As shit. Yeah, and just crawling. It's just weird as shit. And what a way.
The one piece of context I've seen given to it, which isn't a definite, just like a similarity, is that she's crawling on the floor. Cooper was crawling on the floor, you know?
Oh, yeah. I guess.
That's about it. That's about the only way you can draw any context between that and anything else.
And anything else happened is it's so disconnected from everything else in this, not only this episode, but the series. And with 3 episodes left, I wonder, okay, what was that about?
So it seems like Mr. C is eventually going to be heading towards Twin Peaks. It seems like we're going to find out for sure that he's Richard's father.
Yeah.
It seems like Cooper's going to be back, and everybody is going to be kind of like, you know, zoning in on this coordinates in Twin Peaks.
Right.
So it's like everything's going to kind of come down to that, you know? And in some way, this woman with no eyes is going to play some role in it, apparently. We don't really know, but we only got 3 episodes left.
Right. Until the conclusion.
And I think this is it. Like, they're not really planning on doing another season. This was like a standalone story.
Yeah, this is a standalone story. They're not planning anymore, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
So
but that's it for Twin Peaks for this week. Now we're going to be talking about Game of Thrones season 7, episode 6, Beyond the Wall. Let's start off in Winterfell.
Yeah, let's get this stuff out of the way first.
So Arya is telling Sansa a story about her practicing archery in secret, and then when she finally did well, her hearing clapping and realizing that her father had been watching her. And it's kind of like this touching story, and it kind of reminds you there was a similar scene in season 1 where it's not the same scene because like she kind of did it in front of her brothers, you know, and they were all kind of surprised. So it was like a different context, but it ties into a scene from season 1. so she's telling Sansa's story, seems like this good story, and then she drops a bombshell, which is that she basically blames Sansa being complicit in the death of their father.
Right.
And Sansa's like, oh, what?
Yeah, oh, what? Which is stupid. Sansa explains the reasons why she wrote that. Arya is being stubbornly unforgiving about that until like Arya reveals she was there when her father died, and like Sansa kind of shoots back, and did you jump in and save him? You were there. Why didn't you try? You know.
Yeah.
It's like, got him, you know. Unfortunately, this kind of back and forth feud between Arya and Sansa.
It just feels kind of forced.
It feels forced. It doesn't, it's forced drama. Like, why can't Arya sympathize with, I don't understand why Arya can't sympathize at all with Sansa. Like, the rivalry itself has always been there. It's been there from season 1. There's always been a bit of rivalry too, but it seems like they just artificially
even more rivalry, a little bit of animosity between the two.
A little bit of animosity.
Not like blaming for
not like this. Like, this is kind of, when you think everything they've been through, they'd kind of be more forgiving at this point. You know, it's weird. It feels off character. It certainly does. It certainly feels off character for Arya. To me.
Oh, definitely. It just feels weird. It doesn't feel as smart as Arya is. It just kind of feels off. But Arya tells Sansa about the letter, shows her the letter, reads parts of it, and it's like basically dissecting where Sansa would be nervous about this letter. She knows Jon wouldn't care, that Jon would forgive her and understand and stuff. But what Sansa fears, and what Arya points out, is how the other Northern Lords would react to it.
Right.
That she basically, not even so much that she's, like complicit in his death or anything, but more that she's weak, and was manipulated by somebody that they hate, you know? So it's that aspect where they think it wouldn't work with the Northern Lords. In particular, Arya mentions, Lyanna Mormont.
Right.
Because Lyanna Mormont's like younger than Sansa was at that point. So Sansa can't play the I was young card.
She was a child now.
Yeah. So Arya kind of points all this out to her. This has Sansa like super paranoid through that all her stuff in Winterfell. She confides in Littlefinger.
Yeah.
He brings up Brienne, talking about how Brienne is supposed to protect both of the daughters. So if one of the daughters was trying to hurt the other, she might intercede.
Right.
We don't quite know exactly what Littlefinger is implying by this, if he's saying that Sansa should use Brienne to kill Arya, or if she's saying that, Brienne
whatever.
is a danger to Sansa.
Whatever.
Either way, it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Littlefinger's plotting something. Unfortunately, like, given the context of what's going on in the rest of this episode, Littlefinger's machinations does not seem that important anymore.
Sansa sends Brienne away to King's Landing because she got an invitation to this whole thing, this gathering they're going to have in the season finale.
Right.
To show off the whites, So Sansa gets like a letter saying to come down there. Sansa's not going to go down there, but she sends Brienne away, which is notable only because Littlefinger had brought her up. Brienne suggests that she at least keep Podrick with her, somebody to keep her safe from Littlefinger. This is very much like, no, out of my way, get out of here.
Right.
Being very kind of nasty about it. Like, no, get
very kind of nasty and dismissive of Brienne for, again, like, no reason.
Yeah.
Like, why?
Then Sansa goes snooping in Arya's room. She's looking for the letters. Instead, she ends up finding Arya's bag of faces.
There's like this tense scene where Arya
not as shocked as she should be, I think.
There's like this tense scene where Arya basically threatens to kill her. Again, this
and then
is
gives her the dagger.
Yeah, it gives her. We go from 0 to death threats in an episode
to giving her a weapon.
It's like, what? I don't understand. No, I'm not.
One kind of theory that makes this make a little bit more sense that people are talking about is that this is Arya, possibly with Sansa as well, playing Littlefinger. They can't talk openly. Everything. This is all machinations to make Littlefinger think that his plans are working.
His plans are working. If you know what, if that's actually the case, then I can forgive all of this because that would make sense.
If it isn't the case, then the only reason this theory exists is because it's the only way fans could make sense out of all this.
Yeah, exactly. So
no Bran in this entire episode. It just seems like, if you guys are like arguing over what's happening or not, you have like an all-seeing brother.
Right. But they probably don't want to talk to him because he's weird now.
Yeah. His middle name changed. His his name is Bran Exposition Star.
Yeah, exactly. Is there when they need exposition now?
But that's kind of what's going on in Winterfell. I kind of wish that just wasn't even in this episode. Even if it's a plot against Littlefinger, like it shouldn't have been in this episode.
It shouldn't have been in this episode. And and what makes it worse is like this stuff didn't all happen in one continuous scene. This was sprinkled throughout the episode. They kept cutting back to this.
The only thing I could think is that they needed to break up the scenes of to the north in particular to show passage of time.
Right. That's what I think.
That's the only thing I could think of. But like, there's other ways they could have done it. They could have been cutting back. We could have seen like footage of Gendry running and then cut back to them and then Gendry running again.
Yeah. We could have 20 minutes of Gendry running just to show how long it takes. Like, there you go. There's 20 minutes of Gendry just running through the snow. Is everybody complaining about the teleporting happy now? Are we happy we wasted all this time watching the passage of time just so you can, Jesus Christ. It's
so
like,
over in Dragonstone, we had a few scenes, mainly Tyrion just getting treated like shit by Daenerys. Tyrion is talking to Daenerys about the whole meeting they're going to have with everybody, in the season finale, with Cersei, and Tyrion's trying to warn Daenerys that Cersei is going to try to goat her.
Right.
She's going to try to goat her and try to egg her on and try to get a reaction out of her to use against her. And he's saying like, you've been known to have a temper. And she's all, what the fuck are you talking about? I don't have a temper. Fuck you. I don't have a temper.
Yeah, right. She turns into like that FBI guy from Twin Peaks. This is what we do here at the FBI. And Daenerys is basically like, I don't have a temper.
She says, I did what was necessary. I had to do it when she burned the Tarleys alive. And
right.
Tyrion's like, well, did you have to burn the father and the son? You know,
I'm just like, Tyrion, what? Don't question it. And then like Tyrion starts like talking about like who she's gonna have for like a successor or something. And I kind of like sided with Dany on this because Dany is like at that point that pisses Dany off because she's like, why the fuck are you even bringing that up? You know, like wait till I get the crown. And you know, and it's true. Like, why even worry about that at this point?
I see it from Tyrion's perspective in the sense that he's terrified of what's happening right now, and he wants to know if Daenerys dies, and Daenerys keeps putting herself in harm's way. To Tyrion's point, you know, she keeps putting herself in harm's way, and if she's going to die, like, what happens then? Is just everybody that's following her just falls to pieces and they all die?
Right. I get that, but like, from Daenerys' point of view, it's like Tyrion is expecting her to fail. That's what she hears from him when he says things like that.
Yeah.
Like,
and
so you assume I'm just going to fail.
There's a few reasons they can be bringing this up. It could be like a foreshadowing that they're going to kill Daenerys.
Right.
Because they're bringing up the possibility. It could be that they're hinting that, you know, even though she can't have children, maybe somehow she will with Jon Snow. You know, they have a mystical union, a mystical incestual union, and they could produce children miraculously. You know, it wouldn't be the only bun in the oven going on in this show, apparently, though we don't know if that's true with Cersei. We wouldn't put the bastard alive. But yeah, there's just a lot about that. And it could also hint towards something that happens later on because it's talking about her and her children, which is something that plays a big part in this episode in general.
Right. It is something that plays a big part in this episode. So another big part of this episode is that we talked about this in our video on Monday. If you haven't seen the video,
we talked about roughly half of it.
We talked about roughly half. If you haven't seen the video we did, go watch it.
It's on YouTube. I believe it's called a tense standoff on a frozen lake.
Okay,
is the name of the video. Check that out.
So basically, yeah, it continues off from the end of the last episode where Jon Snow and his merry band, you know, which includes Jorah Mormont and Tormund, Sandor Clegane, other people,
Beric, Dondarrion, Thoros of Myr, and Gendry.
Basically,
and a
bunch of red shirts who, oddly enough, we actually don't see on screen until like they die. So like there's no indication that they exist until they're killed, and you're like, wait, who the fuck just died? And it's like,
oh shit, was that the Hound? Oh no, it was just some random.
It was like some random guy. Okay.
I mentioned in a video, and I still stand by this. I don't like the way they handled red shirts in this episode.
No, I don't either.
It took a lot of the punch out of it.
It did, because you were like, oh shit. Because the way it's set up, it's like, you think it's just like those guys going out there. Because that's who you see on screen. And then when people...
Because they literally don't show them. Like, you might see them in the background in one shot, and that's it. Otherwise, they don't have any lines of dialogue.
So when people start dying, you're like thinking, which major character just bit it? You're thinking, oh shit, is that Tormund? Was that the Mountain? Oh wait, it was nobody. You know? So it's kind of lame.
You're saying it was no one? It was one of the faceless men?
It was it was Arya.
But before all the dying starts, like as they're going up, this is another thing I kind of took a little issue with in the episode, which is as they're walking up to start taking on these White Walkers and Whites as they're on their way, they have like a bunch of conversations, and all of these conversations are interesting and good character moments.
Right.
It's just
great. I loved it.
They load it all in the front. Like, yeah. I kind of almost wish, like, because to show the passage of time when they were on the frozen island, it kind of would have made more sense if they had put them in there. Like, yeah, they're literally in a standstill and they're having these conversations.
Yeah, they just put all these conversations in the scene, like, kind of like they're getting them out of the way. It's kind of like they're saying, you know what, people expect these character moments, so let's just have them and get them done with it. You know? And
yeah. Which I don't think is necessarily the right way to do it, because there was a lot of criticism about the amount of time and the way the passage of time was shown. And I think putting these conversations in there would have given more of a feeling that time was passing.
Right.
But some of the conversations that happened, Gendry's whinging about the Brotherhood. The Hound calls him on it in hilarious fashion. Gendry's like, I'm not whinging. And he's like, your mouth's flapping and you're complaining.
And you're complaining, that's whinging. Yeah, there's like a lot of great dialogue, a lot of great character moments.
Jon offers Jorah his sword.
Yeah, Jon offers Jorah his sword. Tormund professes his love to the Mountain of Brienne. The Mountain
to the Hound, you mean? Yeah.
To the Hound. Yeah, I'm getting people mixed up. Yeah, Tormund professes his love of Brienne to the Hound. The Hound mentions that he met her and that she's the only person who beat him. Tormund reiterates how he wants to make giant babies with her
and conquer the world.
Tormund's freaking great in this.
Yeah,
like Tormund's awesome. I love him.
Jon and Beric have a pretty nice conversation as two people that have both been resurrected, and they kind of talk about what it means to be resurrected and the fact that their lives might not hold a lot of great in them, you know, a lot of good times for them there, but they can exist to protect others. And Jon kind of takes that to heart in a similar way to like why he joined the Night's Watch.
Well, it's like, it goes back to the question, you know, because Jon's still struggling with the question of why was he resurrected? Why did the Lord of Light bring him back? You know,
but I mean, that even ties into just Jon. Like, Jon's always struggled with that. Like, why do I exist as a bastard in this family? You know?
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, like basically, why me? Jon's always asking why me.
Not in the whiny way, but like in the why do I get to live kind of way, like the opposite, the kind brooding way.
Yeah, the brooding way, exactly.
Thoros and Jorah also talk a little bit about the Battle of Pike, which if you know from the history of the thing, that's basically how Theon came to be living with the Starks. Is that Pike, the Iron Islands, rebelled against, and they referenced it earlier in the season as well at one point, but the Iron Islands, they rebelled, they attacked Westeros for independence. The Westeros fought back, invaded the Iron Islands, killed all of Theon's brothers, and took Theon as a captive to live as the ruler's only living son, to be a ward of the Starks, which is like an old thing they used to do in medieval ages of like basically taking a hostage and raising it as their child so that if anything happens, you know, if the person acts up, they can kill that kid, you know?
Yeah. So
this is like, they're bringing up this battle at Pike that happened that ended the rebellion. And we'd already heard Jaime talk about it this season. He talked to, Euron Greyjoy, where Euron was saying like, oh, he enjoyed watching Jaime like mercilessly slaughter all these Ironborn, even though they were his own people. But the thing here that Jorah is talking about, is that Jorah and Thoros of Myr were both at this Battle of Pike, and Thoros went like running in with his flaming sword, and Jorah said that, I thought you were the bravest man I'd ever seen.
And he said, no, I was just drunk as hell.
Yeah.
So basically, after we have these character moments, we get like basically the first oh shit moments basically red shirts start dying, and then we see a bear.
Finally, the lost Game of Thrones crossover we've all been waiting for.
Yeah, the lost Game of Thrones crossover. We see a bear. It turns out to be a zombie bear. Pretty freaking huge zombie bear too. Like, this thing's massive, right? We get this like really awesome fight. Thorin lights his sword on fire, everybody's circling it. It's pretty brutal. It
kills a few of the red shirts.
It kills a few of the red shirts. They die. From every time it happens, I'm like, oh shit, who'd he kill? Shit, I'm just wondering who dies. But
it did fuck up Thoros.
Yep, it fucked up Thoros. It literally bites him. I thought he was dead right at that scene at first. I was like, oh shit.
They cauterized the wound though with a flaming sword.
With a flaming sword. They managed to finally kill the damn thing.
Just barely.
Just barely.
Which is it's funny that this is the deadliest battle they had, and they fought a huge army of these whites, but the single bear was by far the deadliest adversary they had.
Yeah, the single bear. It's shit, if the White Walkers invade with a bunch of those fucking things, I guess everybody's just dead.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I would be doing if I was a Night's King. I'd just be let's get some elephants, some bears, some rhinos, just any kind of really big animals.
Yeah, any kind of big animal.
Yeah. So they finally end up killing this bear. They cauterize Thoros' wound. They get up and start moving again. When they're moving, they end up spying a White Walker and a small group of whites, kind of off on a patrol or something.
Right.
They end up attacking. It's a fairly easy fight. They're basically everyone's trying to take on the whites except Jon, who's taking on the White Walker.
Jon's taking on the White Walker head on. Jon has, the sword made of Valyrian steel. Nobody else in this fight has Valyrian steel. So Jon,
they have some dragon glass, but not Valyrian steel.
And we know from the lore that Valyrian steel is just as effective on White Walkers as dragon glass. The theory being that Valyrian steel is made with dragon glass.
Yeah.
As one of the ingredients.
Yeah. So Jon swings the sword, cuts right through the White Walker. He shatters into glass, and all but one of the whites just crumble.
It's a pretty easy fight. I mean, that's why they attacked them, because they knew that they could take them, that small group.
So
and
they got
knew
the
that was
white
their best
battle
chance.
over.
Right,
battle over. Time to go home.
Yep. Not quite, because apparently a horde of whites and White Walkers are just coming for them.
Right after this white is making this high-pitched scream that's really loud, and then you just kind of hear storm in the background. You just kind of hear ice cracking sounds and weather sounds, and then you look out and you see it looks like a storm approaching, but it's the army of the whites and the White Walkers.
Yeah,
it's like this guy called them with his before they were able to cover his mouth.
Right.
And so they're like, oh shit.
It's like he called for help, help, I'm in distress. Come save me.
So they're like, oh shit. And then Jon immediately grabs Gendry and says, get the fuck out of here, get to Eastwatch and send a raven for Daenerys. Gendry starts to argue and he's like, you're the fastest one, go. And Tormund, is he or Tormund or the Hound basically says, no, leave your battle hammer behind because you need to run.
Yeah, it'll slow you down. Leave it behind. I think it was the Hound actually who said
and the
that.
Hound kind of took it for himself to use. So Gendry goes running off. They go running. Yeah,
he barely makes it.
He barely makes it. That happens a little bit later in. We see that he ends up making it. Right, he collapses right in front of the wall. The wall opens because, of course, the Night's Watch are watching.
He teleports there. Everybody teleports this season, right? So
Davos and the rest of them go out there, and they're like, where are the others? And he tells them to send a raven. We see a scene where Daenerys has received that raven, and she's going out with a badass-looking coat.
Tyrion's begging her not to go. She decides to not listen to Tyrion. She
shuts him down too.
She shuts him down. She's like, okay, the last time I listened to you, I suffered some pretty heavy losses, so I'm not going to listen to you. And
then she takes off. She takes and leaves with all 3 dragons.
So basically, what we were talking about in the video, this is where basically they're cornered on a rock. They had to cross this frozen lake that was breaking underneath their feet, you know. So it, trying to escape from the whites and the walkers. They
run to like a small island in the middle of the lake. They run to a
small island in the middle of the lake. Now the lake, now the lake is not solid. So the whites, they're smart enough to know that if they step on that lake, they're all going to fall in, and it's not going to be good for them. Since they're dead and they got no place to be, they're going to wait them out.
Yeah, because I mean, it doesn't matter to them, Yeah,
they're
already dead, and
they're already
it's
dead.
really harsh conditions. It's only a matter of time before they all die,
Yeah, it's only a matter of time. So they're just willing to just stand there and wait them out until they die. The Night's King is there, overlooking the whole thing from a hill. Night's King is there. He's not going to miss this.
There's five walkers, or five White Walkers total there, including the Night's King.
Including the Night's King. Yeah. The White Walkers, I guess, are basically the generals in this army.
Yeah. So we see them. They're there in the distance. There's this ring of these whites around them. Because we did talk about this in the video. Go out to check out the video to see what this is. But just to catch us up to the point where we stopped in the video, I'm just going to rapid fire through what happened basically, which is that they're trapped on the frozen lake overnight. They're there. You can see at least one day passes because it gets dark and gets light again.
When it's light again, he throws rocks.
Thoreau Severe finally succumbed to his wounds and died. They burned him. All of the remaining red shirts die. Daenerys shows up for the rescue, but unfortunately the Night's King has been training in javelin throwing and takes out Viserion with an ice lance. It's important to note that, that's one of the questions I see a lot of people coming up. It's like, well, how did he throw it that far? It's like, well, he is a supernatural being, And I looked it up, and it's like the furthest javelin throw, for a human, was in 1984, and it was over 300 feet, almost the length of a football field.
So basically, Daenerys comes in with her dragons. She's burning the heck out of the White Walkers. It looks like everybody's saved. Her dragons are making short work of all the zombies there. And she comes in to save everything. And then the Night's King. Now this is interesting because, we know earlier the Lannisters made this machine to fire a spear into her dragons and kill her dragons. Which
giant scorpion ballista.
Yeah, giant scorpion ballista, which they used to not much effect. It didn't really, the one time it was used, it connected, but didn't really do the damage that the Lannisters had hoped. and so basically after that, the Night's King is basically to the Lancers. He's basically hold my beer.
Yeah, hold my beer. I got this.
I got this.
So we saw in Hard Home when Jon was fighting a White Walker in that episode that Jon had dropped his sword, his Valyrian steel sword, and he had another sword. This is how Jon found out the Valyrian steel killed White Walkers. So he had a regular sword. He swung it. The White Walker parried with his ice blade, and Jon's sword shattered like glass.
Yeah. It completely
So
shattered.
If you're wondering how this ice javelin did so much damage to a dragon, this ice javelin thing,
Well, I mean,
this is something
magic.
that shattered, it shattered a sword like glass.
It's like, if people are calling that out, it's like, you guys say, well, these creatures are magic. It's probably a magic ice javelin.
Yeah.
So
it is. Exactly.
Yeah, it is. So, but what's not, the javelin itself isn't impressive. The damage it does isn't as impressive as just the throwing arm on this guy. And he picks it up and he just chucks it and hits the mark like a moving target, from so far. It's like, holy shit, dude.
Can't wait for the spinoff where he enters the NFL.
Yeah, I can't wait for a spinoff where he enters the Olympics, the javelin throw at the Olympics.
As people are talking about this throw being impossible, but first off, he's a magical being, and second off, I looked it up that the world record for the longest javelin throw is almost the length of a football field.
Oh, okay.
So if you just think let's say supernatural being, he can throw 3 times as far. That's over 1,000 feet.
Right.
So yeah, he could do that, as a supernatural entity. That it's firmly in the range of plausibility that he could throw something with that much force.
And this is pretty brutal. It's gut wrenching because you see it connect, and they leave no doubt that the dragon's not just going to fly away from this one.
I mean, the fire in him is erupting out of him and blood spraying out. I mean, it's
blood blood is
pretty.
like erupting out of him and he's spiraling down. It's not pretty at all.
He lands in the lake and just like droops and slides into it. It's
make it 100% clear that was fatal. You know? Yeah.
Everyone is just looking on in like utter kind of shock and dismay.
Everybody is like shocked. I don't think anybody's seen like a dragon like taken down. So, you know.
John like looks up at the Night's King. He's like furious. He starts heading towards him. Then the Night King grabs another spear and John's look of fury turns into like a oh fuck. And he yells for everybody to leave. And he's still on the ground, but he's like, get the hell out of here.
Night King's looking to kill another dragon already.
Yeah.
He's not wasting any time with that.
John's like, that can't happen. You guys need to get out of here. Not only because it's a dragon, but also that's their ride, you know?
Yeah, that's their ride. He's going to check it out their ride, you know? So, Daenerys manages to dodge this one, but Jon gets left behind. Jon fights off some whites to ensure that everybody else can escape. And so Daenerys is kind of forced to leave without him.
And Jon kind of like very almost immediately gets like knocked into the frozen lake.
Yep.
And it doesn't look good for him.
Things look pretty dire for Jon.
That's where we left off on the video.
That's where we left off on the video. So basically, Jon crawls out of the frozen lake. So he's still alive, but again, it's like, it's dire because now he's like soaking wet in this frozen wasteland. You know, that's an even better way to get Frost to freeze to death.
And now he's all alone against an entire army.
And he's all alone. So basically he's either going to get eaten by these whites or he's going to like freeze to death, one or the other, you know. There's no plausible way of him making it back because he's too weak to run. You know, things don't look likely for Jon Snow until Uncle Benjen shows up.
Shows up swinging that lantern on the chain weapon he has.
On the chain, yep.
He gets to Jon really quickly. He gets right past them because he's on a horse, so he outpaces them to Jon. He immediately shows Jon his face because he knows that's like the only way to basically convey, trust me and do what I say right now.
Right, exactly.
And he says, get on the horse and go. And Jon's like, come with me. And he's like, there's no time. The horse takes off with Jon. The whites, Benjen goes in to fight the whites, but he's overwhelmed. There's nothing.
It's a suicide mission, basically. Benjen knows he's gonna die there. He's
dying anyways. That's a part of the point as well.
That's a part of the point. He's dying. He's already like, he's at some like really magical halfway point between being human and being a white himself.
Yeah.
So
he basically had been left to die, and they stopped the the Children of the Forest stopped the transformation process.
Yeah,
so
they stopped the transformation.
He's just kind of like in this temporary like spot between those.
Right.
So he's gone. He gets wiped out by the whites. Jon is taken away by horseback. It's very clear of the whites. Go back to Eastwatch, and we see a few things there. First off, the Hound says goodbye to Beric. He loads the white onto a boat to take to the larger boat that Daenerys is using.
Yep.
Apparently Beric and him are parting ways here, and the Hound is going with the ship, with Daenerys to King's Landing.
Yep, to the big gathering at King's Landing to bring an unexpected guest.
We see that Daenerys is watching from the wall, waiting for Jon to come back. Just as she's about to give up, you hear the horns.
Yes.
That signal that there's a rider coming. They pull Jon in. He's unconscious. They kind of strip him down and get him into a bed there. This is important because Daenerys sees his body and goes, damn.
And goes, damn.
No, she sees his body and sees all the
stars. She's all stars. She's like making googly eyes at like Jon now, you know? It's like
yeah, but besides that, she sees the scars. She sees the scar right over his heart and these scars from when he was stabbed.
Yeah.
So she kind of has this idea of like, oh, this story of what they're saying. Now I see what it means. He was stabbed, like in the heart, basically, or like right near his heart, at least. So she's kind of looking at him kind of strangely. He eventually wakes up. She's in the room with him. He apologizes for her losing a dragon. They have kind of like a little bonding moment that basically ends with him bending the knee.
He bends the knee. Well
metaphorically.
It ends with Daenerys, basically pledging herself and her army to defeating the White Walkers. Because, after she Jon apologizes and she says, no, she's thankful because she really had to see it for herself, to know, to be committed to the cause. She says, it doesn't impact you until you see it for yourself, basically. And also, the Night's King killed one of her dragons, so now she has like a real reason to be pissed and want him dead in the worst possible way.
This is another thing where they brought up the kind of idea of children with Daenerys, the fact that she tells Jon, I told you before, I can't have any more children. These dragons are my children, and the Night's King has killed one of them. Now I only have 2 children left, and I can't have any more. This plays into the whole kind of thing, the argument between her and Tyrion, where Tyrion was talking about succession, because when she thinks of succession, she thinks about the fact that she can't have children.
Right, exactly. That's another thing.
So this is kind of like a theme woven throughout this episode with Daenerys and kind of talking about her dragons as her children. And it's also to hammer home like just how bad that loss is for her. It is like she lost a son.
Right, it is. Exactly. So she's fully committed to fighting the White Walkers, and right after she gets her commitment, Jon bends the knee to her.
Not physically, but
not physically,
verbally.
But verbally. It's a verbal bending of the knee. And basically
he's laying on his back and he just pulls his knee up to his chest.
They have this bonding moment where, I don't know. I don't know a good ship name for these two.
John Aries?
John Aries, I guess. Yeah. That makes sense.
You could merge their true last names, and that would become Targaryen.
Yeah. So basically the ship is happening, is what I'm saying. Because they're all like, there's hearts and shit coming out of them.
Shipping on a ship.
Yeah, shipping.
They said, the Game of Thrones creators said, we hear you like shipping, so we put some shipping on your ship. So now you can ship while you're shipping.
You can ship while you're shipping.
Next scene we see cuts away from that, back across the wall. These whites are pulling Viserion out of the frozen lake. And these massive chains. They're pulling him out. Night's King walks up, places his hand.
Corpse of Viserion.
Yeah. The Night's King puts his hand on the dragon's snout, and we see Viserion's eye open, and it's that telltale blue. That you always see with whites.
Zombie dragon.
Yes.
The Game of Thrones will be the first and only piece of pop culture media to bring us a zombie dragon that I am aware of. I could be wrong. Somebody say, no, there was a zombie dragon in Forgotten Realms. Like, no, shut up. Okay, I didn't read that.
If you go to books, I've seen zombie dragons before.
Yeah.
I have. I just read one where this army was like stitching together like dead dragons and turning them into.
Oh, nice. That's cool. But this is the first in live action on a mainstream TV show. Okay.
Yeah, definitely the first outside of just a book.
I'm imagining now because I saw the trailer for next week's episode where it shows like the big gathering at King's Landing where, Cersei like has some fuckery planned. She has like something planned where she's gonna fuck over Daenerys and all of her other enemies at the gathering.
All humanity.
and then she's gonna like put that through. She might even succeed in killing somebody or whatever. And then when she's at her most arrogant and smug, that freaking zombie Viserys will like just fly into King's Landing and start murdering like all of her armies and shit, and like everybody else that can kill. And
I don't think that's gonna happen in the next episode.
It should. I don't see no reason why you couldn't like that. That'd be like an awesome finale. That would like shit. That'd blow everything.
That brings us to the finale discussion though. Like, what do you think is going to happen in this finale?
I think that's going to happen. Yeah.
So I'm going to bring this up again because I brought it up last year. I thought it was going to happen and it didn't. I'm going to bring it up again. You think the wall's going to come down, or at least a part of it?
I think at least a part of the wall's going to come down. I don't think they're going to bring the whole. I don't think the whole wall's going to come down, but like
they're going to breach it.
They're going to breach it. There's going to be a part of it that falls, and that's going to provide a way in for the rest of the army. Obviously, they got a dragon now. They can fly some White Walkers over the wall on that.
It all depends on how the magic works,
Yeah, it all depends on how. Yeah, like that's true. They got to like break the spell on the wall.
It could be the case that it's already broken because Bran crossed the wall.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, that's true. I really
that broke the enchantment that protected the.
Well, I think definitely we're gonna see them breach the wall because next season is gonna be all about the war between between the living and the dead. You know, that's what this season has been building up to. And since next season is the last season, it basically has to be that. You know, there's nothing, you know, it has to be the war between living and dead. So I think we're going to see them breach the wall by the end of this episode.
So this season finale is also 80 minutes long. It's the longest episode of Game of Thrones yet.
Oh, wow.
And it's expected that next season, like every episode is going to be around that length.
Oh, good Lord.
So basically every episode next season is going to be like
we're going to have like an extra long podcast next week then.
Maybe. It depends on if it's just all action and there's not a lot to talk about.
Right.
But I think the walls in some shape or form is coming down. I don't think the whole wall's coming down, but I think it'll be breached. I said that last season though, so I don't have a track record. I just assumed that at some point a part of that wall is going to be breached, so why not in the season finale?
You assumed things were going to happen faster than they did.
I think Cersei is going to hatch some dastardly plan.
Of course she is.
On the interesting side of things, if you noticed in the preview, we didn't see Daenerys.
That's interesting. Yeah, we didn't. But
so remember when Tyrion and Daenerys were talking, Tyrion was talking about how Cersei would have a trap, but that they shouldn't lay a trap themselves because they're trying to be better than those ones. But Daenerys isn't really listening to Tyrion.
She isn't really listening to Tyrion.
The fact that she's not there, I think, means that she's got her own trap in mind.
That's possible.
So I think we might see something like that. Cersei might pull a trap. Daenerys responds with her own trap. They all end up playing Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah. I activate my trap card. And then I activate my traps card, and then Night's King is like, I summon Blue Eyes White Dragon.
Pretty much. So I think we're going to have something along those lines. There is a shot from the trailer for the series, like for the season, before the season even debuted. There was a shot that was in what appears to be the Dragon's Pit. We haven't seen it yet, so I'm guessing that's what it is, because that's where they are in the footage we see for the next episode.
Right.
In which it looks like the Hound is standing there with his sword out. So it could just be that he's going to just display the white to show the white to everybody. He's the one that handles them. But one of the big, like, people call it a fan theory, but it's not really a theory. It's more just like a wish.
A fan wish.
Is something called Clegane Ball, which is the idea of, like, you know, people want an all-out brawl between
people want the Hound and the Mountain to go at it. Like this has definitely been like a fan wish. And basically for the Hound to finally be the one to defeat the Mountain. Nobody's defeated the Mountain yet. And so I think it's only fitting for the Hound to take down the Mountain. And also the look on Cersei's face, you know, when her like invincible bodyguard falls would be priceless. You know. So
some other questions here. What do you think's going to happen in Winterfell with the Winterfell storyline?
Boring shit.
Do you think anything's going to come out of it though? I mean, I brought up the possibility that Arya and Sansa are playing Littlefinger. That's a good setup for, do you think Littlefinger might get killed off? Because there isn't a lot of place for him anymore, the way the story is moving.
Like whatever the hell machination he's running. Like again, I said earlier, so whatever machination, like given all the events that we see in this episode where things are headed, his machinations don't seem important. It doesn't seem like it matters anymore. Whatever the hell he's doing doesn't matter.
Which would mean that, you know, he's vulnerable. He doesn't have plot armor.
Right, exactly. So we might see him die, finally.
And the other question is, do you think we're going to see Sam and Gilly? Because they have information that's going to come into play.
We're definitely going to see Sam and Gilly.
I mean, in the season finale.
I think so. It'd be kind of weird. Although we might not. They might save that for next season. I mean, they've done that before, where they've just left entire character stories for the next season over, you know, that were in progress during the current season. So it wouldn't surprise me if we didn't revisit Sam and Gilly this episode. We probably won't.
What about Gendry? You think, you know, we see where everyone's kind of going in different paths now. Like, Beric is parting ways with the Hound. The Hound seems to be going with Jon and Daenerys, but we didn't see Daenerys in the preview yet, so we don't know if they're going to take a pit stop somewhere, what's going to happen with that. We know Beric's gone his separate way. Right. I really see no reason for him to still be alive, like plot-wise, Beric. That's why I thought he was going to die in the last episode.
Well, we probably won't see Beric Megan for that reason,
Yeah, but then we have, what about, like, some of the other people there? What about Gendry? Do you think Gendry's gonna, now that he's in the north and he's back from this war, you think he's gonna carry on with Jon and Daenerys, or do you think he's gonna head to Winterfell? Because he knows Arya's there.
He might head to Winterfell, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what he's gonna do, to be honest.
So there's a lot of little possibilities here. We don't really know what's gonna happen. It is a very long episode, so if it's just like the pure politics of this situation with Cersei and King's Landing and all that stuff, it doesn't seem like that would require 80 minutes. So there's got to be more to the episode. So yeah, it'll be interesting to watch. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm hoping there isn't a leak that gets something else spoiled for me.
Right. All right.
So that's it for our Game of Thrones discussion for this week. Next week, we'll be talking about the season finale. Just to do what we always do at the end of the podcast, talk about what's coming up in the next week. By the time this podcast is available on Friday, Disjointed will hit Netflix, as will The Tick, but for Amazon. I'm really looking forward to The Tick. I'm excited about that one.
I'm excited about that one, too.
And then nothing else until next Friday, September 1st, when Narcos comes out on Netflix, season 3. So that's September 1st. That's the beginning of the fall schedule, the way we listed on our site, which is starting in September and going through November. Because of that, I just today posted our fall preview. So if you want to see what shows are coming up and coming back in fall, I have the whole fall preview up there. So check that out and see what you like. There's a lot of trailers and short descriptions of what the shows are about. So check out and see, plan out your schedules for what you're going to watch. Because if you don't, you're just going to be overwhelmed. Because you're going to be overwhelmed anyways. There's so much TV.
Totally.
So until then, you can reach me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can reach Will on Twitter. He is at Voxel Hero. Check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, as well as our site, TVEnthusiast.com. You can subscribe to this podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Cast. And the entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel, as are our Game of Thrones videos, like the one we talked about earlier today. You can find all of those on our YouTube channel, which you can find on our site. So thank you everybody for listening. Night.
Good night.
If you would like to voice your opinion, send an email to theweeklyset@TVEnthusiast.com. TV Enthusiast is a part of the Enthusiast Media Network. Stay tuned to TV Enthusiast and the Weekly Set podcast for more coverage of all of your favorite shows.